We've enjoyed the games. Now it's time to enjoy the top 25 that actually makes sense. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Please hit that like button. Even if you don't agree with me, don't agree with my rankings or my approach, please hit the like button because it helps build the channel. And if you enjoy quality college football discussion, debate, and analysis, the best in the business, please. That's our aim. That's our goal. That's our mission. Help us reach that goal with discussion and debate with you each and every day on college football. We are here talking the game we all love every day with you. Please share the videos out on social media and subscribe. Now let's get to the top 25 that actually makes sense. And what's a bit amusing about this process, in addition to getting your feedback and responses, is that the results on the field have actually more and more confirmed why our top 25 makes sense, and I'll explain that in just a second. But let's understand right off the top that our top 25 is based on the results on the field. We don't base it on what we thought of these teams in July, which the national pundits are still hanging on to. You can see this clearly in the rankings, that they're still hanging and clinging on to what they thought of these teams before the season started. And it's also not based on what would happen if number 7 played number 4. Well, we think number 7 would beat number 4, so we're going to switch them. And because I get that comment all over the place, probably hundreds of you say every week, well, so-and-so would beat so-and-so, and so-and-so would beat so-and-so. Do we really know this? Well, of course we don't know who would beat whom. Consider this. I just looked at this past weekend, which was not out of the ordinary, the typical upsets in college football. Out of 33 games played amongst the Power 5 teams, 22 were won by the favorite, 11 were won by underdogs. The underdog won 33% of the time, and I mean substantial underdogs. So we don't know who would win these games. The underdog would have won and did win this past weekend 33% of the time. And consider, out of those 11 games won by the underdog in Power 5 related games, 5 of them were double-digit underdogs. And that doesn't even include Oklahoma barely skating by West Virginia. If you saw that game, there were West Virginia mistakes. Oklahoma could have easily lost that game as a 18-point favorite. And that doesn't include Auburn being gifted a win as a 29-point favorite against Georgia State. Those aren't even included. So we should have had 7 double-digit underdogs win. So when somebody says they would beat them and they would beat them and I should base my rankings on who would beat whom, we base the rankings on what's actually happened on the field. So the results are king, followed by the performance. So it's results followed by performance. For example, Georgia just beat Vanderbilt 62-0. So all that matters in the standings is that Georgia won, Vandy lost. But had Georgia won that game 48-45, I would evaluate that game much differently than the way it played out, with Georgia being completely dominating, annihilating Vanderbilt 62-0. So it's results, then it's performance. But also consider, with the results, we've got to go back and reevaluate all the previous results. So this undertaking becomes more and more complicated every week because I've got to reconsider previous games. Because a game in week 1 may have seemed like a very difficult opponent, but it's shown after 4 weeks of play that that opponent wasn't necessarily as good as we thought they were. So the results have to be reevaluated. So, for example, I'm reevaluating Indiana's win against Iowa State. Still a quality win, but not as quite as good as we thought back in week 2 of the season. And over and over and over and over. Consider this. While my rankings are just based on results on the field, based strictly on resume, not what I think would happen if these teams played, it's actually become a very good predictor of games. Because I'm ranking the teams deservedly based on what they've performed on the field. Consider this. This past weekend, and this is just a couple examples out of dozens of examples. Consider this. Okay. In my rankings, Arkansas was number 7 in the country, and Texas A&M was number 15 in the country going into their matchup. Okay. Arkansas was the underdog. According to the AP and the coaches poll, they had Texas A&M at number 7 and Arkansas at number 16, completely flipped from me. Now, were my rankings predicting that game? No, I was just basing it on the results on the field and the performance on the field. But in my eyes, Arkansas had clearly done more and been more impressive than Texas A&M going into that game. They beat Texas by 3 scores, and they were dominant in their wins against Rice and Georgia Southern. While Texas A&M hadn't beaten anybody any good. Colorado was their best win, and they won 10-7, barely slipped by Colorado, and were unimpressive against Kent State and New Mexico. So based on the results on the field, Arkansas had a much better resume than Texas A&M, substantially better. That's why I had Arkansas 7, Texas A&M 15 instead of the other way around. The AP and the coaches, well, they had it flipped because going back to last year and the offseason, everybody thought Texas A&M was going to be so good that they had to play themselves down, which is stupid, doesn't make sense. Let's go by what we're seeing on the field and not by what we thought in July. So what ended up happening? Arkansas won the game. Arkansas continued to play dominant football. Texas A&M continued to struggle as they have against Colorado and against lesser opponents. What ended up happening? Iowa State, what have they proven this year? Nothing. They lost to Iowa by 2 scores. Could have been 3 scores. It was 3 scores late in the game. And they've beaten nobody. But because of what we've thought about Iowa State in the preseason, in the offseason, they were still ranked number 14 in the AP and in the coaches poll. Number 14 in the country for beating UNLV and for beating Northern Iowa by 6 points. Does that make any sense? So I had Iowa State unranked. They hadn't done anything. Not that I didn't think that Iowa State was possibly one of the top 25 teams in the country, but they hadn't done anything to prove it. Nothing. They lost to Iowa by 2 scores. They beat UNLV, and they beat Northern Iowa by 6 points. So what ended up happening for Iowa State, number 14 in the country? They lost. Clemson. I still felt that based on their performance against Georgia, possibly the best team in the country, Clemson did not give up an offensive touchdown, just lost on a pick 6, 10-3. That based on that performance and beating a Georgia Tech team that we're still trying to figure out, that they deserved a ranking. They earned a ranking from me. At number 24, not number 9 in the country, what had they done to be number 9? You know what they had done? They won the national championship in 2016. They won the national championship in 2018. They went to the playoffs last year. That's what they did to earn that number 9 ranking despite a loss and a horrible performance against Georgia Tech. Clemson did not earn a number 9 ranking. I had them at 24, not at 9. What happened to Clemson? They went out and lost. I could give tons of examples like this. Those are only 3 from this past weekend. All right, on to the top 25 that actually makes sense. Here we go. I never said it was flawless or perfect. You can argue with it, obviously, but understand it's based on the results and performance on the field. Also understand that there are a number of teams that I considered that are just barely out of the top 25, and that these margins are razor thin. So there's like 8 or 9 teams that are just out of the top 25 that I very much considered, and they are that close with a nice win or with losses, or not even losses, poor performances by the lower portion of the top 25. We'll see it change again next week, I'm sure. Here we go, top 25. That actually makes sense. Number 25, San Diego State. 24, SMU. Number 23 is UCLA. 22, Boston College. Number 21 is Wake Forest. At number 20, we've got Baylor. 19, Fresno State. At number 18, Ohio State. Number 17 is Kentucky. In the number 16 spot, Oklahoma. 15 is Maryland. Number 14, Michigan. Number 13, Oklahoma State. Notre Dame's number 12. Cincinnati's 11. And here's your top 10. Michigan State at number 10. Florida 9. Ole Miss 8. BYU number 7. Penn State's at 6. Here's your top 5. Iowa's 5. Oregon 4. Georgia 3. Alabama number 2. And the number 1 team in the country with dominant wins against Texas and Texas A&M. And no poor performances. The Arkansas Razorbacks are number 1 in the country. Are they the best team in the country? That's not what I said. They have the best resume in the country thus far through week 4, right here at the Voice of College Football. We welcome everyone. We're going to have call-in shows throughout the week as we typically do. Monday night in particular, Wednesday night in particular, live streams all over the place. Please lock in as we get to the heart of the college football season, and an amazing week 5 is coming up. So please tell people out there that we are here talking college football every day, and we'll see you next time.